Hi, thanks for watching the video. I'm Todd Baginski. I'm a Microsoft MVP and the partner and CTO at Canvas. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install and set up the Travel Approval PowerApps sample template. Let's get started. The Travel Approval PowerApps sample template allows company employees to easily submit travel requests from desktop or mobile devices. Travel requests are automatically routed to the appropriate manager and travel department for approval. This reduces processing time. Managers can also access status reports for all travel requests to verify their current status and manage the travel budget. Before you get started setting up this, you'll need to sign up for PowerApps, make sure you have a SharePoint Online Global Administrator account for the Office 365 tenant that you will install this in. You must also have a Power BI account and Power BI desktop installed. Finally, you'll need to clone the project to your local machine. Here you can see in Visual Studio Code I have cloned the project, and you can see the different files that make up the project. The README MD file, which we're looking at a preview of right here, provides all the instructions that I'm walking through in this demo. So I suggest you follow along with this video while you go through these instructions to set this up in your own environment. The first thing we're going to do is create the travel SharePoint list. This list will store all the travel requests. To create the list, first, install the SharePoint Online Management Shell. You can find the link that you see up here inside of the installation instructions. After you've installed it, open up the SharePoint Online Management Shell and change to the directory where you have cloned this particular sample. After you've done that, then you'll execute a few different PowerShell commands in the Online Management Shell. The commands look like this. First, we'll define an org name variable. This is the name of your Office 365 organization. In this case, the tenant that I'm using is CAND3. So I will change that placeholder and then execute this code inside PowerShell. Then I will connect to SharePoint Online by executing this command. This command will then prompt me for the username credentials to log in. I'll enter them now. After you enter the credentials, click the Sign In button to continue. Then execute this next command inside of the window. This goes and gets the content out of the JSON file that defines the site script that creates the travel approval list. After you've done that, copy the ID you get back for the site script and then paste that value into the ID placeholder for the next PowerShell command we will run. After you've done that, copy that whole command and paste it into the window and execute it. At this point, now you have created a site script as well as a site design that includes that site script. Next, go to the SharePoint homepage in your Office 365 tenant. Here you can see mine. Notice the CAND3. That's the same value I used in the previous step, the name of my organization. Then click Create Site. After that, click Team Site, and then in the Choose a Design drop-down, pick Travel Approval. This is the site design you just created in the SharePoint Online Management Shell. Then enter a site name. I'm going to use Travel in this case. Then click Next. Here, you can add additional owners and members to your site. For example, if I wish to give Elisa Lawyer access, I can enter her name and then click Finish. All of the users who will use the Power App are going to need access to the SharePoint site to see the data, so I suggest you add them at that point. After you click that button, the page will refresh and you can see the status of your site script executing on the right. The travel list has now been created. Click the View Updated Site button. After you've done that, the page will refresh, and on the left side, then click the Site Contents link. Here you can now see the travel list has been created automatically by the site script, and I can click on it to see what's inside of it. It's important to put in at least one record here. This will allow us to do the next step where we create and configure the Power BI workspace. I'll enter a dummy record in here right now. After you've added this record, you can now move on in the steps to create the Power BI workspace. To create the Power BI workspace, in your web browser go to app.powerbi.com. Sign in with an account that has a Power BI Pro license. Then, in the left menu, click Workspaces. At the bottom, then select Create App Workspace. In the Name Your Workspace text box on the right, enter Travel Requests. Then, add Workspace members too. Keep in mind that in order to view this report in either the Power App or inside of the Power BI tools in the client or the desktop, users will have to have access to the workspace as a member. So for example, if I wish to add Elisa Lawyer, I can type in her name and select her and then click Add. She's now added to the list. Finally, when I'm done, I can click Save. This saves my Power BI workspace. Now I'm ready to create the Power BI dashboard. To create the Power BI dashboard, first open up the Travel Requests-Reports.pbix report file. You can find this particular file in the Resource folder underneath the Travel Approval folder where you clone this repository. When you open the report, it will look like this. First, go up to the ribbon and click Edit Queries. This will open the Power Query Editor. Then, click Data Source Settings. Then click the Change Source button. Now, you will paste in the URL to the SharePoint site you created in previous steps. If I return to the web browser and I go back to the site I created, here I can see this one is called Travel 23. So I'll copy that URL and then return to the Power Query Editor and paste that value in and click OK. Then I'll click Close. Next, click the Refresh Preview button at the top. If no data comes back, you may need to edit your credentials. To edit your credentials, click the Edit Credentials button. Then, select Microsoft account and click Sign In. Then select the Power BI Pro account that you're using to edit Power BI. After you've done that, in the drop-down list, select the site that you created in the earlier step. Then click the Connect button. After you click Connect, it will connect to the SharePoint site and it will download the data, and you can now see it here inside of the Power Query Editor. Once you see data here and you know you've successfully connected it, click Close and Apply. After you've applied your changes, the next thing you want to do is publish those changes. So in the ribbon, click the Publish button, then select the desired workspace. If prompted to save your changes, click the Save button. Now I can search for my Travel Request workspace that I created previously and select it. Once you've selected it, click the Select button. The report is now being published to Power BI. After the report is published, return to your web browser and go to app.powerbi.com. After you've done that, you will see the Travel Requests workspace appear. Click the arrow to expand it. Then, go down to the Travel Request report and select it. Then, at the top of the page, click the Pin Live Page button. Where it asks you where you'd like to pin it, let's create a new dashboard. In this case, I am going to name the dashboard Travel Report. After you've entered the dashboard name, click the Pin Live button. After you've done that, click the ellipsis next to the travel report dataset, and then click Schedule Refresh. Click the Edit Credentials link. Then select OAuth 2 for the authentication method and click the Sign In button. Sign in with the account that you used earlier to create the SharePoint list. This account has access to the SharePoint data and therefore is a good one to use. After you've done that, in the Keep Your Data Up to Date, in the Scheduled Refresh section right here, turn that on. Then click the Apply button to save your changes. After you've done that, in the Dataset section on the left, click the ellipsis next to the Travel Request Reports and select Refresh Now. This verifies that your connection to the report is good for refreshing the data, and you also make sure that now that we have a scheduled refresh, we'll keep that data up to date on a regular basis. The next thing we're going to do is create a group, an Office 365 group called Travel Group Approval. This group will be used to send emails to so people can approve travel requests. To create this group, open a new PowerShell console as an administrator, then run the following command. This elevates your execution policy to allow you to run a PowerShell script in the next step. When prompted, type in the letter A and hit Enter. Next, enter in this command to create the group. This PowerShell group will create the group for you automatically. When prompted, log in with a SharePoint Online Global Administrator account. I'll enter those credentials now. After you enter your credentials, click the OK button. The script will now proceed to create the group. The script can sometimes take up to 1 minute to execute. After it's done, enter this PowerShell command, set execution policy default, to return your execution policy for PowerShell back to its default state. When prompted, enter A and hit the Enter button. You'll see that when we ran the script to create the group that we did get some information back from it here. We want to copy this information and save it, because we will need it in subsequent steps in this installation process. I'll paste the information here into the Notepad file where I saved this other information for the particular setup. After you've done that, we're now ready to actually install the Travel Request PowerApp. Returning to Visual Studio Code, I'd like to show you the different files that we'll need to import the PowerApp. You can see there's two of them. One of them is the mobile version of the PowerApp, and the other is the tablet version. In this particular video, I'm going to install the tablet version of the PowerApp. If you'd like to install the mobile version or both versions of the PowerApp, just follow the same steps that you're about to see me walk through here to install the PowerApp. To install the Travel Request PowerApp, in a web browser, go to web.powerapps.com and then sign in with an account that has maker permissions inside of that environment. Then, in the left menu, select Apps. In the top menu bar, then select Import Package. Click the Upload button. Navigate to the directory where you have cloned this repository. Then select the version of the PowerApp you wish to install. After you've selected it, click the Open button. Then wait as the package is uploaded. After the package is uploaded, you'll see this screen. Validate that the import step for the Travel Request app is Create as New, and then click Import. The import process typically takes a minute or two to complete. Once the process is complete, you'll see this message at the top of the page that says all package resources were successfully imported. You can now move on to configure the PowerApp. To configure the Power App in the web browser, click on Apps. After you click on Apps, you'll see the Travel Request Power App has been installed. Click the ellipsis next to it and select Edit. When prompted, click the Allow button. Once the app is loaded in the editor, click the View button in the menu and select Data Sources. Then in the data pane, click the ellipsis next to Travel and select Remove. We've now removed the connection to the SharePoint list. The reason we did that is the previous connection was not pointing to the list we created during this process. To add the connection back appropriately, click the Add Data Source button. Then, find a SharePoint connection and select it. After you've done that, then what you will do is you will find the SharePoint list, or the SharePoint site where you installed your list. If you do not see it in the recent lists here, then you can actually type the path in or paste it into this text box. I'm going to return to the other tab in the web browser to grab the URL to the site that I created. I will copy that. Then I will come back to the Power Apps editor, paste in the URL to the site, and click the Go button. Now we can see the travel list inside of the site we created. Select the travel list. Then click the Connect button. After you've done that, go to the File menu and then select Save in the backstage. Now you can click the Publish button and click Publish this version again to push your changes out to everyone who has access to the app. At this point, only you have access to the app. Click the Back button in the top left. Then, in the Screens pane, select the Reports screen. After you've done that, in the Properties pane on the right-hand side, click the URL next to Data. In the Workspace, select Travel Requests. In the Dashboard, select the dashboard you created. Finally, in the tile, select the tile that you pinned. When you're done, you can close the data pane and then click File and select Save. After you've saved, publish and then click Publish this version. The changes you made to the Power App for the Power BI report are now complete. We can now move on and update the Travel Approval group name. Click the back arrow to return to the editor. Then select the main screen in the left menu. In the top menu, click Action. Then click On Start button. This allows us to edit the On Start property that you see here. What we're going to do now is replace these placeholders that we see right here, down here, and right here with the values we obtained in previous steps. Those placeholders will get replaced with the values that we got back from the PowerShell script when we created the group. The first value we need to replace is the external directory object ID. You can see inside of the Power App, as well as the code we got back from PowerShell, the name is exactly the same. So here we will go ahead and copy that identifier, and then we will paste it back in, including the less than and greater than signs that represent the placeholder. So I will use that one here, and I will also use it here. Then there's one more value to replace, and that is the primary SMTP address, this value that we previously copied. Once I have that value copied from Notepad, then I come back in here and replace it in the onStart method. After I've done that, same routine, File, Save, Publish, then publish this version. This wraps up the configuration of the Power App. Now we'll move on and modify the flow. The first step in modifying the flow is creating the data connections that we need. These data connections include connections to SharePoint, an Approvals connection, the Office 365 Outlook connection, and the Office 365 Group connection. Here's how we create them. Go to flow.microsoft.com and log in with your account. Then, in the Data menu on the left, expand it and select Connections. At the top of the page, click New Connection. Then, in the top right, type in SharePoint. Select the result that comes back, and then click the Create button. This will ask you to log in, and you will again select the account that you've used. After you select that account, your connection is created. We will then do the exact same steps to create the Approvals, Office 365 Outlook, and Office 365 Group connections. First, I'll click New Connection. Then I will type in Approvals, select Approvals, click Create to add the connection. As you can see, I've already created the maximum number of connections for the Approvals API, so I don't need to create another. Essentially, this means I've already created it. You'll see if I take away the criteria from the search box, here the Approvals connection has already been created. The other connection that I need to make is the Office 365 Outlook connection. So here, you'll just search for Office 365 Outlook, select it, click Create. When prompted, select the account you'd like to use to make the connection, and then you're done. That leaves us with one connection to make, so click New Connection again in the search box, enter Group, then select Office 365 Groups and click the Create button. Again, you'll sign in with the account you wish to use for that connection, and now your connection is created. We can now move on to importing the Flow template. To import the Flow template, click on My Flows in the left menu. Then, at the top of the page, click Import. Then, click the Upload button. Now, you'll navigate to the directory that has the Flow template in it. As you can see from the file path at the top here, the Flow template is contained in the same resource folder where the PowerApps are. I will select the travel request-flow.zip file and click the Open button. This will start uploading the package into the cloud, and in just a second I will have a page that will allow me to configure the connections for the flow I'm importing. Now that the import package upload has completed, we can see the different connections as well as the flow that we have here. The first thing to do is check that your import setup step for the travel request flow is set to create as new, like you see here. The next thing is to go down to all of the different connections that you have here and select which connection you'd like to use. The first one we'll do is Approval. So I will click Select During Import here, and then select the Approvals connection that I've previously created. I will then follow the same exact steps here for all of the different connections in this flow. You may see more than one connection listed in the list if you've created several of them in your environment. The next thing we'll do is now click the Import button. At this point, the flow is really being imported into the system, and we will see it in our environment shortly. When this completes, we will be notified on this screen. Now you can see by looking at the top of the page, all package resources were successfully imported. Our flow is now ready to modify. To modify the flow, click on the My Flows page on the left side of the page. Now you'll see the travel request flow in the list. Click the pencil icon next to it to open up the editor. This is a large flow, and there are several different places we need to make an update to this flow to dial it into the environment in the SharePoint list that we just created. Returning back to our SharePoint list here, I'm going to copy that URL because I'll use it to update the flow. The first place to change is when a new item is created here at the top. Here, click the X button, then at the bottom type click Enter Custom Value, and now paste in the URL to the site you created. You can then click the X button to get rid of the list name and select the travel list. We'll now repeat this step in a few different places. The first place that we're going to go is under the Did Manager Approve if yes. Then this Update Item action. We're going to do the same exact thing here to update that URL. Once we update the URL, then we will select the list. The next action to update is Update Item 5 here. We'll do the same exact thing. It gets a little tedious as you go through and doing these, but there's only a few to do, so it doesn't take too long. The next thing to do is under Did Manager Approve? If yes, Did Travel Department Approve? If yes, Update Item 2 right here. Again, the same steps. Click the X, click Enter Custom Value, paste in the site URL, and then select the list. After you've done that one, move over to the one right next to it that's called Update Item 3 and do the same thing again. Okay, now we've got those done, and we can search in the rest of the flow for the other ones we need to complete. The first one we need to complete is over here on the right-hand side. This one is called Get Item. Again, the same process, just delete the URL, put in your new one, then select the new list, and then finally the last one that we need to do is Get Item 2 down here at the bottom of the flow. Once you have all these values updated, you're ready to save the flow, and then you will be able to move on and actually test out the Power App. So I've got them all updated, and now I'll click Save. We're now ready to go test out the Power App. To test out the Power App, we go back to web.powerapps.com. In our list of Power Apps, we can see the Travel Request app that we've installed. The name of yours may differ depending if you installed the mobile or the tablet version, or you renamed it already. In any case, click on the link to open the app. The app will then ask you to allow the connection to Power BI. Click on the Allow button. Now we can see that the app is up and running, and we're able to use the sample. Please see my other video which describes how to use the Travel Request Power App sample. Thanks for watching the video. We hope this Power App solution comes in very handy for you as you develop your own Power App solutions for your business, and maybe you'll even use it for travel request approval as well. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.